I would stop recording just.
Health and economic disparities here in West County. And this is the second one we have held here at RYSE. And I want to welcome, I think there's about 18 people who've joined us online, in addition to all of you, so thanks for coming. We did one here a couple of weeks ago that was just for young people. And we had about 50 youth here at tables, so that was great. And we held one in Pinole City Hall. We held one recently at St. Peter's CME Church in West El Cerrito, and then we will be holding one on Thursday at San Pablo City Hall. All of them have been hybrid. By the way, I'm Gioia, and I don't know. And I have been honored to represent West County in the Board of Supervisors for a long time. And you know, really the purpose of these town halls is to collect greater public input. And I know today a lot of this is focused on community-based organizations. So a lot of you are with CBOs, although anyone is invited. That's why this one's during the day. All the others have been at night. To give input about some of the greatest needs about equity. For me, since the legislation was about achieving equity, I don't know, every supervisor has their own process on this, but ours here in West County is about reducing health and economic disparities and achieving equity. So that's really what this is about. And what we're probably going to do after we get all the input is put together a kind of application process for grants, and making it as easy as possible for large or smaller organizations. And we're going to use, maybe have a break where some grants will be under 50,000 and others will be more than 50,000. And the reason we're doing the 50,000 is because organizations don't need to hold insurance under county rules for grants under 50. Because there may be some smaller organizations that don't have the capacity and we want to help them. So that's why we're going to probably have a breakdown. How we're going to do this, I don't know yet. Now, I will say one other thing. Some of you I know follow this. There are some other federal ARPA funds that the county previously put into reserve that are in our general fund. I'm going to advocate that those funds also be available. Those are millions more. How much more are they, Mariana? Was it 17 million, right? I know you keep up on this with the touring opportunity. 17 million countywide. And what we do with that, I mean, I'm going to advocate that since we, fortunately, are doing really well on our reserves, we have a lot of reserves, but the board is concerned about all the federal cuts we're facing, right? The federal law that passed that really cut back on Medicaid is going to affect us. We believe that we could have up to 70,000 individuals fall off of health care as a result of that. That's a lot. Now, in our county of 1.1 million, about 250,000 people are on Medi-Cal. We serve 200,000 of those individuals through our own county health system, hospital, clinics, all that. So we're concerned. We're concerned about the cutback to food stamps, right? Food security, we're hearing a lot about that. So, you know, we may need to draw reserves, but this issue of whether we utilize this other 17 million in a process with this kind of input, we'll see. I'm going to advocate for that when this comes to the board. I will mention one other fund of money. It's separate, but I just think to park it in your mind. I serve on the Bay Area Air District, and I had advocated for a long time for a policy that spends more of the money that we collect on fines and penalties. And some of you in the room know about this, right? Very well, including Marisol. And so under this new policy, 80% of the fines and penalties we collect over $1 million go back to the local community. So what does that mean for us? There's about $36 million in fines and penalties that were collected from the Chevron refinery that are going to be available for West County, specifically the areas like Richmond, San Pablo, North Richmond that are impacted by industrial air pollution. I just got a pre-draft of the guidelines for that I'm looking over, and I know the Air District staff has been good to seek my input on some of this. We've also been holding separate public meetings at neighborhood councils and city councils to talk about this process. And what's going to happen is the Air District's going to release these guidelines in a week or two to get public comment on the guidelines. will come back to the Air District Board that I serve on and approve those guidelines probably by December, and then in January, we'll start a grant process for that 36 million. And a lot of that's gonna be health-based, right? Improving people's health, especially from pollution like particulate matter. It could be greening the community, it could be energy improvements, improving homes. So that's a different fund of money, but it's 36 million on things that could be used for health in Richmond, San Pablo, North Richmond. So I just want you to know, we will publicize. In fact, we may wanna, make sure everybody who attended these town halls hears about that. So you can apply for that. Because look, our budget at the county is $7 billion, right? 4 billion of that is health. And I mean, $1 million is not much money, right, to solve a lot of problems we have. But at least this is an idea to how do we hear public input on this million through some grant program. So with that, Carl Paul, you're joining me. Carl Paul, one of the founders of RYSE. I mean, some of us have been here from the very beginning, and give it up to RYSE, which is an amazing way to get.
Yeah, you do. I'll give this back to you.
Okay, so can the folks online hear what I said?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to repeat it.
No. Word for word, John. Okay. All right.
Make it lip read.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, roomers and zoomers. Thank you for making it today. My name is Conra Paul. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the associate director and one of the co-founders of RYSE, along with our executive director, but mainly and centrally with dozens of young people from this community who organized over 20 years ago to create space to connect, to grieve, to heal, to organize, to advocate. And so this room and this space that we're in is really built on the legacy of young people thinking about the future for their 6, 7, 8-year-old nieces, nephews, siblings, cousins, right? So the young people who organized for this space did so knowing they would never directly benefit. And so as we think about where and how resources that rightfully already belong to our communities should go to, want to invite sort of that spirit and that legacy of like, what am I seeing in my world that's proximate to me, but how might I also listen and learn what's going on in other places, right? Like Supervisor said, it's not a lot of money, but it's about the relationships and how we look at the way in which those allocations connect and collectivize our work. Couple of housekeeping. How many folks have been to RYSE? Okay, yes, right, all right. So, OGs. If you haven't been here and you're interested in sort of getting a tour of the campus, learning more, let me know. We can arrange that today, another time. But what I also want you to know is young people also told the adults who were invited to be part of this, we know you're stressed out, we can see it, take it out on us. So we know, and so we want you to have space too. So just as much as this is about, making sure there's space for buy-in with young people, is also saying we also need adults to get together, do the work, heal with each other, struggle with each other, celebrate with each other, and center us. And so this space is also very much so, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. You are exactly supposed to be here in this room and on the Zoom. This is what it's for. So, if you want to clap for yourself, snap for yourself, do a woo-woo, whatever you need to do, you can come off Zoom and make a noise, feel free. I keep doing that throughout the day. We have bathrooms on the first floor. You go right before the doors you entered, go to the right. There's also staff here. I'm here to help support if you need to get around. If you need water, if you need something else, thank you for the food. Because we don't count, governments don't pay for food. We're like, what the hell? Like, basic, right? Is food, so thank you for understanding.
We did get a budget for food.
Yeah, so, and thank you to community partners for pushing that, because I know we were like, you can't do a town hall, no, have food, right? So, anyway, as we consider allocations, right? All right, so with that, I think, John, you're gonna provide more context around these set of funds, and what is currently going on and how we might.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna take too much more time at that, because we wanna really make this a conversation. Every one of these that we've done, we've had also good conversation, and sometimes it's been a good question. Say, well, there's funding over here for something, because I think it is really unfair to community and nonprofits to put people through all sorts of requirements for like small amounts of money, right? You know, if we want to respect all of your work, you're putting in a lot of time, you're doing a lot, and these are really important issues. So I will apologize up front with that. I wish we had more money to put out through this process, but you know, like in some of the other town halls, I have heard that, you know, some issues about health that could get funded out of the Air District Fund. So we want to keep you in the link on that. The other thing is, you know, we've been able to close a lot of gaps, not all, but do a lot of good things with our Measure X sales tax funds. And I know Mariana was a co-chair on behalf of the community, along with labor unions on the community side of that campaign. And I was a strong advocate to putting the sales tax measure on the ballot in 2020, where we raised about $120 million a year in the general fund to the county. And we've used a lot of it for health and social services and food security and childcare and, you know, and EMS, fire, things like that. So that is ongoing, that revenue continues. Our budget, I mean, we're unclear, as I said earlier, what cutbacks we're gonna face in federal and state. The state, I mean, one of the areas that's impacted us is, right, and this is under even a state role, is many undocumented families will no longer be eligible for Medi-Cal, right? I mean, children and seniors will, but not for that large group in the middle, age-wise. And we used to fund some of this through Measure X, right? And so that's an area we're really concerned about, right? Having undocumented fall off of Medi-Cal. And also, really proud of, we're the largest preschool provider through Head Start, which is federal dollars in Contra Costa. There's some great community nonprofits doing it as well. And there's a new proposed rule from the federal government that will require us to deny Head Start for undocumented individuals. Now, we don't ask, if you're an immigrant, right, we don't ask whether you're documented or not, but we will have to start doing that if this rule passes. So there's things we don't know yet that are gonna happen and impact us. And you know, we did put a lot of money toward emergency for housing purposes, rental assistance to keep people in their housing. We used Measure X dollars, we used other dollars. In fact, some of those strategies, along with building new affordable housing for previously homeless individuals and shelter beds and transitional housing beds, has resulted in a 27% decrease. Still not enough in the homeless population here in Contra Costa, but a 40% decrease in Richmond. So there are things happening. So rather than go into other things, I'd like to just turn it over to the process to hear from people about, and again, we are transcribing all of this, we're recording it, we're taking really good notes. So we're gonna prepare for the Board of Supervisors a summary of the input we receive, which is on top of the survey. There's a survey that's being done. And I wanna acknowledge my staff who's—
That's closed.
The survey's closed. Just acknowledge my staff who really helped. This was a lot of effort to put 5 townhalls together, so I want to acknowledge my staff. My chief of staff, Sonia Bustamante, who is leaving us at the end of the year to help run a new immigration center with a nonprofit in Contra Costa, so that's good, right? So that my staff that are here, Robert Rogers and Tanya Polito and Ronnie Mills, great, so thank you very much. And of course, Conrad Paul and the whole staff here at RYSE, thank you, because you've hosted 2 of these. So there is going to be this community survey that was done through a website countywide. That's going to be broken out by supervisorial district, so we'll see that individually. Now, I think my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors are probably going to come back to the board in October with some recommendations on funding. I didn't want to do that so early. I wanted to wait, go through all our town halls. I think other supervisors are doing maybe 1 or 2 each. We did 5, just more work, but it's better getting robust input, 1 just for young people. And so we're gonna then come up with this process of like an application process. So I just wanted to wait. So don't expect recommendations for Supervisorial District 1 when this comes to the board, which is the 17th, what's the date? October 21st. There may be some funding, so some of you are countywide nonprofits, there may be some allocations coming through to the board on that day from other supervisors, so just be aware of that. Ours will not. We're gonna, however, present we're gonna be done to present results, right, Sonia, on this?
Yeah.
So our colleagues and the public can see what came out of our process. Okay.
Can I just say
Yeah.
something real quick? I think it's important for folks to know.
Yes, we're gonna have a mic, I'll walk around here, okay,
I
like,
just want to share some information about families.
Hey, all, Mariana Moore, Ensuring Opportunity Budget Justice Coalition. Just want to say that at least a couple other supervisors are planning to bring up that 17 million countywide and available funding on the 21st. So I would suggest that we all go and bring our folks and bring our communities and, you know, share what we know and what we need and what we want and what we deserve. So the 21st is a very important date for the Board of Supervisors.
right. Thank you for mentioning that, because I think having your advocacy to say,
Yeah.
well, yeah, those formerly ARPA funds, you know, should be rolled into this larger pot of money for ARPA purposes. Thanks. We can have that mic go around.
And she was asking where it is, so it's at the Board of
It's at the Board of
Supervisors.
Supervisors in
chamber.
Martinez, yeah. Although you can participate by Zoom, Pamela. So, you know, all our meetings are Zoom hybrid. So just, if you can't make it out there, just Zoom in.
Well, I have my admin here because I'll be in Barbados.
Right, oh, okay, well, send in a letter or an email. Okay. So Howard Paul, we have that extra mic going around. You want it, should we just, Sonia or someone, maybe, why don't we go around and just start? And because some of you may have questions, some of you may have thoughts, and Robert will go around and do that. So, yeah, however you want to start this off. And again, we're noting everything you're saying, okay? And some of you have been at some of the other town halls, and some of you are, I just want to thank all of you first, because I know many of you are strong advocates on many of these issues. So I just want to acknowledge, I'm not here alone. I'm here with all of you because many of you have, I've worked with, and I know the work you're doing, and thank you for that work.
And Joanna's here, she wants to chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joanna Gertie, and she, her pronouns, and I'm here with Healthy Contra Costa. Just a couple questions for you, Supervisor. So in terms of the grants, are these going to be like on a reimbursement basis, or will folks receive the funds like before they start the programs?
Wow, that's a good question. So, some of these we're gonna check. I know when there's contracts with the health department and EHSD is here, those I think are mostly reimbursement contracts, most of those, because of some requirements on the grant. I will check. My view is if we could make some money up front, because I know especially organizations that need to get things started, so we should note that as a question. I don't know how those other rules will affect us, and whether those are county procurement rules that will affect how we allocate. Great question, but we should note that as a question is, can we provide money up front, or are they all reimbursement? Because I know that's a common issue I hear from a lot of organizations, like Greater Richmond Interfaith Program, I hear that a lot. So yes, we'll check into that.
Got it, thank you. And then one more question I have is, will the full $1 million be specifically like a grant fund essentially, or will part of the 1 million be grants, and then the other can be, for example, the county's putting 200,000 into the basic healthcare program, just like thinking, will the full $1 million be a re-granting fund?
Every supervisor is probably gonna do it differently. And you raised a good question I hadn't really always thought about. That's why we're holding these meetings, so I can hear these good ideas. There's a little money that was taken out to run this process for interpretation and hold these meetings and all that, so that's not a lot. The rest of it is available for allocation. So is there some other, maybe you're expressing an idea, right? I mean, obviously, if we can leverage our money in whatever way, let's say it's, maybe that's gonna be in our process. If the CBO says, hey, if we get 50,000, we're gonna get another 50. That could be valuable, because we'd like to leverage the funds. I've already thought about leveraging as maybe giving extra points. Not that you have to leverage it, but this is not a lot of one-time money. It's not a lot to really solve these big healthcare issues. I want to try to make them make a difference in the community. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good question to think about, and I think when I hear all the input, that would be good. I don't know how much, for setting aside some large amount of this and say we're going to provide, increased healthcare somewhere. I'd almost rather take that out of another pot. I just don't know if this is enough to really make a difference, but you raise a good point. Yeah, I think, I haven't made any decisions. I want to hear from this and put everything together. And thank you for the work you're doing. Like, we have this other fund of the West Contra Costa Healthcare District that has to be spent in West County. And we're, Supervisor Scales Preston and I, we really make recommendations on that fund because it's only West County. We're looking, that's ongoing money. And we're looking at opportunities for that, separate. Come on, this is not a shy bunch. You came here, yes.
Hello, Jeanette Kennedy with Loaves and Fishes of Contra Costa, and I just want to lift up food insecurity. I think I've attended the other town halls in the other districts, and I think we're hearing that our county is food insecure, that there's a rising food insecurity in this community. People have to make a decision, are they paying their health care, their rent, or food, or what are they doing? And so there's more and more people coming to Loaves and Fishes. We provide a hot, nutritious meal and groceries to anyone in need. There's no barriers. So one of the things, though, is that we are hitting a threshold. We have a central kitchen that serves the community that has been operating for over 25 years. It's 1,700 square feet. We've been pushing out more than 3,000 meals a day, and we're at capacity. And there's more. Yeah, we have an incredible team, but unfortunately, there's more people in need. So we are seeking funding, which we've already talked to your office, and just want to lift up that in order to serve District 1 and serve the wider community and the Head Start programs, even the county Head Start program that had to close the kitchen, we need a new facility, which we are working on, and so just want to lift up food insecurity.
I wanted to, some of this, ask a follow-up, because I know I advocated for $1 million of Measure X money to go just into food security issues, and EHSD did some process. I haven't followed what's happening, but one of the ideas that I had suggested for that, I go to a lot of nonprofits and churches who have kitchens, and many of these kitchens aren't full or aren't permitted by environmental health. And they will say, we serve people out of our community. You do a great job, right? Loaves and Fishes. I also hear, as I say, from these small churches and nonprofits, and they'll say, if we had some money to fix up our kitchen, we could serve a lot of people. So that grant process, I thought, was going to address some of that. I don't know if there's been an update on that. I'm going to actually check in on that. See, there's a work that I'm going to have to do after I get this input, because I want to see how some of the other funding streams are going, because that 1 million went to a nonprofit that was gonna have a process. I don't know if you've kept up with it. Yes, you may know about
I can
this.
share a little bit.
Share about it, because that was some of what I had shared with Dr. Marla Stewart
Right.
when that RFP was put together.
So the Food Security Collaborative that Loaves and Fishes is one of 5 organizations was awarded some of that funding through the RFP, the collaborative, and a lot of that, and then the food bank does have a mechanism to re-grant to the agencies within their
Yeah, I haven't
network.
heard how
right?
that's going. How is that going?
So the contract, so it's got pushed. November 1st is supposed to be when we can start. And my understanding is that it's through legal and we're, fingers crossed, we're across the threshold. So November 1st we can start. But this was delayed almost a year just to
Right.
get, so
I will follow up, because
Yeah.
that was $1 million specifically for food security issues to help, they're.
And it is, and it's to get
Right.
food into the community, and there's a lot of great,
Right.
it's not going to be funding for the kitchen for Loaves and Fishes,
Right,
but
right,
it
got
is going
got
to get food into the
But it could be used, I'll have to check, it hopefully will go through a process where, like, let's say some local churches I've spoken to can apply for that. Because they'll say, I've been to so many of these where they have volunteer, I sort of think of the food money, not just about providing food, but providing the infrastructure to get the food out. And that, things like your kitchen is one of those. But there's so many great nonprofits, small ones, and especially the churches. The churches have told me that, they have volunteers in their congregation who do this work, want to help, and they just need help on their kitchen. I went to a particular event that happens regularly. I will not say who it is, because they did not have environmentally health approved kitchen. And they were serving lots of people, literally hundreds of people. And I said, I want to try to help you. And, you know, I don't want to like turn them in. We don't want people getting sick. That's one thing, because there are, you know, in this county, a number of years ago, there was a church in Antioch that had a Thanksgiving turkey, but people cooked those turkeys in their home and brought it in, and like several people died. Oh. We don't want that to happen. So we are very conscious about health. So it's not just a requirement on the books, but I do think, in my mind, that's an area and we're gonna explore, we'll see how that grant's going. So this is all helpful, because there's other funding mechanisms out there, and yes, thank you for saying that. Yeah, and after this comment, we'll go to Zoom, because we got folks on Zoom.
Hello, thanks for hosting this, and thanks to RYSE for providing the space. I'm Ben Gilvar. I'm from an organization called Steam the Streets. We work to get young people better engaged, interested, and aware of emerging career paths. And that's what I wanted to kind of, to use your word, lift up that aspect of things, because if you don't have an idea what all these opportunities you could be, and then you get to 30 years old and you're like, what am I going to do with my life? That's what we really try to address, to light that spark in young people so they can have a vision going forward, so they could be more economically secure as they get older. And I just had a couple questions, really. One, would the fund be open to fiscally sponsored nonprofits?
For sure. That's one of the things that we understand. A lot of nonprofits need a fiscal sponsor. So if you're not in a 501c3, work with a fiscal sponsor.
And I guess two, would collaboration be welcomed, or partnerships?
Sure.
With other groups?
I mean, we're open to seeing what's out there, and if organizations want to work together, that is great. Very good.
Right.
Looking forward to your event. Why don't we go to Zoom? Yeah?
Oh, we have one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Pamela Saucer, Men and Women of Valor CEO. We do have 2 commercial kitchens, and we do feed 100 to 200 people every Tuesday. We've been doing this for the last 14 years here in Richmond. But we also need some funding to do some upgrades in our commercial kitchen, one kitchen. So we are.
You know what we may do, and we take a note here so I don't forget, is as we look at things here, we may want to publicize another grant process that's going on. You're giving me good ideas here. Like if we have, I don't know how much has been re-granted, who to go to get Food Security Collaborative. So if they're gonna have a process of taking grant applications for kitchens like this, then I want to publicize that along with what we're doing. So this is important because there are other funding streams that already exist that may be able to fund what you're doing. So we want to use this as an information process to get people that information of what are the grants to apply for, including the Air District grants, maybe something in the Air District grants. I think as I've heard more, I'm coming to that conclusion that it's not just about this money, it's about what are the other funding sources we can link you to that would be important. Consider this more of an entree. And so I'll get updates on all of those. So I'll talk to EHSD to find out more on that and then see what's that grant application process and put that out there as well. So we may do that.
Thank you.
I think we have
Yes.
Zoom comments now.
Zoom, yes. Jesse, hi Jesse.
Hi. So,
Hi.
nice to hear from you, and I'm glad you're doing this.
Jesse, I know who you are.
So
Why don't you
I
identify
am
for
Jesse
people?
Turan.
Jesse, why don't you identify for people who you're with and all that?
Yes, I am an unhoused resident of Richmond. I live in a bus. I am a former alumni of the Riding Road Home Project. And I would just like to say it's very frustrating, speaking as someone who's homeless, the problem of homelessness is always talked about, but we're not included in the conversation. And I cannot tell you how disrespectful it feels to not be included in, everyone's saying it's such a huge problem, but to not be included in the conversation about ourselves. That said, there's something that I think you should be aware of. It's called SB 1383, Senate Bill 1383. It is the surgery bill.
You're cutting it, Jesse, you're cutting
California
it.
law that all. Okay. Can you hear me
Jesse,
now?
you're cutting in and out. Can you
Hello?
repeat that? Can you repeat it? You're cutting in and out, and stay close to the mic.
Okay. Senate Bill 1383 is California law that requires all food-based businesses to donate 40% of their surplus edible food to nonprofit organizations. However, it requires local municipalities to enforce the law. If the municipality doesn't enforce the law, it gets ignored and all this food gets wasted and thrown into the landfill. Hardly anyone, there's no one complying with it. And I think one thing, a huge thing that local government could do would be start encouraging, maybe forcing, food-based businesses to comply with Senate Bill 1383. So that's one.
No, I will
And
taking a note of this. Okay, well, taking a note of this to follow up. I don't know if any folks here in food security also have had experience with this as well. Yeah. Well, why don't you finish, Jesse, and then I can ask a follow-up from someone here.
And another thing that you might consider doing, I realize $1 million isn't very much money, but well, there's a couple things, but the animal care and control, the animal situation, the situation with the dogs here in Contra Costa County, I've never seen it like this. And I've been homeless for 5 years. There's no money right now for spay and neuter programs, and it's getting way out of. The shelter is telling people to animals back on the street. Like, people are calling them if they found a dog, and they're telling them to put the dogs back on the street. Hold on, Jim from Paw Fund. So that needs to be addressed. I'm talking with John Gioia right now. So it's like the amount of animals it's horrible, and there's no funding for it. And I don't know what's happening, but there has to be more money put into spay and neuter programs. And also, with regard to the homelessness issue, I don't know where all that money's going, but it's not going to homelessness. I guarantee you that, because I'm sorry, but homeless rates have not fallen by 40% here in Richmond. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Jesse. I will say, I was just out, in fact, we took Senator Arreguín a while back we took him around to see the new transitional housing units, mobile units we're building in North Richmond, to see the work that was done to improve housing at the shelter, to visit the 54 units of permanent supportive housing that we built with federal, state, and county dollars. And I've met residents out there who were previously homeless getting services and being housed now in this. So I mean, I think we're doing as much as we can with the money that we have. It's not enough. We need to do more. I will say, I've seen it with my eyes. We have built more transitional housing units. We've improved the shelter beds, and we're building permanent housing. But we need to do a lot more. Agreed. So thank you for that. Yeah, thanks. Can we say something about animal services? I can tell you I'm probably not going to recommend money to go to animal services for the following reason. Under state law, every municipality, meaning city and the county for the unincorporated area, is responsible for animal services. Under the arrangement in Contra Costa, except Antioch, every city has a contract with the county and pays the county to fulfill their legal responsibility for animal services, and doesn't pay us enough. They pay less than the cost of providing services. So what you all need to do, Jesse, you included, you need to go to city councils and say, if you want to put more money, I'm not using ARPA money to pay for animal services. I want cities, there's 18 cities in this county, other than Antioch, we'll get to Antioch, that have a legal responsibility to deal with animal services. So if you want more services, you need to talk them into, we are subsidizing animal services for the cities through the county budget. Let me give you an example. The city of Antioch, the only city in this county that has its own animal services, and I was just speaking to their mayor, spends $3 million a year on animal services. Richmond, the same population as Antioch, 110,000 people, pays us $1.5 million. So every time Richmond says, well, someone says, you know, we need you to do more, my answer is, Antioch pays double what you pay. You could pay us a little more and we could do more. We can do more spay neuter. So don't go put this on animal services, put it on the cities that should be paying us more money because we are paying for the unincorporated areas more than our legal share. So you raise a good point, Jesse. I'm just saying, go to what the law provides and you know, we'd like to do more. We provide, Animal Fix Foundation is doing low-cost spay neuter as an agreement on we provided them the former Panola Animal Shelter site. So they just had an event recently. So there's a lot of things that if you want to advocate, this money is not going to cover everything we need. Everybody needs to step up. Cities need to step up more on homelessness, right? In fact, I took people from the State Association of Counties from out to see the stuff we're doing, and they said, well, wait a second, Contra Costa, you just built housing in the city of San Pablo at your cost. How come the city didn't do it? I mean, we wanted to do it, we got the money. Cities, Richmond's stepping up. There's more they can all do. Richmond does more than most cities in this county on homelessness. Cities need to be stepping up and putting more money to homelessness and housing. That we don't have the budget to do it all, so I think part of this is an advocacy to get more money where we should be getting it, whether it's animal services or homelessness. I really feel it's unfortunate that we talk about all this in the context of $1 million, when really it's about all this other money to get people to do things. So anyway, thanks Jesse for those comments. So next online.
Eve?
Hi Supervisor, can I be heard?
And by the way, just Jesse says they closed the West County shelter. You're right, we only have one shelter in this county, and that's in Martinez. Whether you live in San Ramon, Discovery Bay, or Richmond, you have to go to Martinez, right? And it's farther from Discovery Bay to Martinez than it is from Richmond to Martinez. My point is it's inconvenient for a lot of people around this county, not just in Richmond. So we'd like cities putting up more money. Yeah, sorry. Got me off. It gets me just to identify that there are other things we need to be working on to bring in funding.
Eve?
Hi there, Supervisor Gioia,
Hi.
thank you so much. It's so great to be in this space with you. And as you know, my job is to shine a light on food recovery.
Yes.
I appreciated Jesse's comments about Senate Bill 1383. We prepared for 1383 for years, and we are poised to recover more and more and more food. And people do need to do better about the donation law. But I wanted to talk a little bit about food recovery and food waste because
And Eve, can you comment as you speak what we can do a better job of implementing that state law? What suggestions you have?
Oh, sure, 100%. So what would be very helpful is for you to let local businesses, that's large restaurants, catering companies, actually large and small restaurants, farmers markets, anybody areas. So we're picking up from hospitals, from schools, and then we're delivering to schools. But anybody who is a food purveyor can donate food to WPE. And now we have food runners. We have a whole volunteer cadre on an app, and they can pick up all the smaller food offerings. So we have a fleet of 13 refrigerated trucks. We can pick up palletized food, but we can also pick up a couple bags of bagels if that's what you have at the end of the day. Again, if it's fresh, if it's delicious, and we turn it around in hours. So the law is connected to the requirement that businesses do better with their surplus food.
If there's a way that all this great food security coalition we have in Contra Costa can maybe work to help us and give us the sort of maybe best thoughts on how each of the 19 cities and the county can help enforce this law, that would be helpful. And it sounds like, because it may help those of you in the coalition, because it gets more food into the system.
I think that's a very good idea, and that will be part of our work. So just a beat about what happens when we waste food. It creates, every ton creates up to 3.8 tons of CO2. And when that goes to landfill, it releases methane. This is a greenhouse gas that's 25 times more potent than CO2. So we've recovered about 32 million pounds of surplus good food, and this has prevented about 48,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions from entering the atmosphere. So the result is not just food security, but it's also clean air. And I want to talk a little bit more about the nutrition security, because the food that we're recovering is coming from primarily our largest donors are Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, large produce markets, farmers markets, and Starbucks. And so that's the prepared food for the unhoused that ends up being so helpful. But the food is delicious. It's fresh and healthy, majority fruits and veggies. And we're providing food to neighbors in District 1. I love what you said, Supervisor, about helping people with capacity. And for those that don't have the capacity, and so right now we're serving just over 20 groups in District 1. And that would be like Ian Towner, Lincoln Elementary, that's GRIP, who you mentioned earlier, Brothers of International Faith, Cali House. These are all our friends in Richmond that receive weekly grocery deliveries based on specifically what they want and need. We've seen about a third of our budget is vulnerable to federal cuts, and just over 500,000 is officially off the table. So we are struggling a little bit. We know that we need to sustain operations, but that also we're going to need to increase our operations, and we have the space to do that. But it will require some additional influx of operational funds. So I just wanted to
Thank you.
take that
Thanks for, I know I've been out to visit. White Pony Express does a lot of really good work along with others, and appreciate the effort you all have made there at White Pony Express.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Thanks, Eve. Next, online.
Yeah, we're gonna take one more on Zoom and then we'll go back to room speakers.
Is that Marcia?
Hi. Sorry.
Marcia.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good to hear from you.
Good. I'm sorry I have a blank screen here, but I wanted to check in to see if you're thinking about funding smaller programs for whole health. As you know, we've had a program with Rosie the Riveter Trust and the National Park for, gosh, about 15 years now. And I'm still working on it, trying to help fund the program, even though I would probably wouldn't Sarah's. And I am concerned that we don't actually work with that many kids, but in the course of a year, it's about 200 to 300 kids. And the entire focus of the program has been on building whole health. So it's not just food insecurity. It's basically focused on building the kinds of skills that kids need to survive, to write their resumes, to go into interviews, and basically social skills, so they make friends. And it, of course, spans the range from rising 8th graders into and now through high school, thanks to some of the work Sarah's done to create a pathway. And the focus of it really is to try to get these kids employed and economically secure, ultimately. So we give them a range of opportunities with career fairs. We've taught welding and carpentry and taken the kids out to take a look at the trades and the incredibly well-paid jobs that those offer. And we do a lot of work with them just in terms of the social skill building that they need. And so my question is really, with a smaller program like that doesn't serve huge numbers of people, but that's highly important in terms of building economic security for these kids. Will you be thinking about that when you're doing this grant making?
Well, and we have taken information out about this, right, in the notes about, I'm familiar with, the RYSE Trust work in this area. And so, yeah, I think, small programs are going to be eligible. I don't see that we would want to cut small programs out. And granted, we want to serve as many people as we can in all of this work. And every person, every life makes a difference. And, there's always going to be a balance in these funds, right? How do we serve as many people as we can, but how do we make as great of an impact as we can? So it's a bit of both. So yes, I think, we're listening to all these ideas. So thanks for putting that out there.
Great, thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So, I've talked to you about this, and many of us in the room, like, $1 million, right, it's something, but it's not everything, right? And
Let's say it for what it is. It's a drop in the bucket.
if that, right?
Yes.
I can understand, like, sort of the thing about, like, granting the dollars. I want us to also maybe think about how do we collectivize that a little bit more? It's one-time funds, right? And I'm thinking what we're hearing from young people, from our families, is there's different costs that are coming up every day. They can't predict what it's gonna be. They need money, right? And they need to know they can access funds to then prioritize what's going on. And I know we've talked about this at the county level, a county care fund that really is disbursement of dollars to families, to the people that we are working in service to. And so I don't know, I feel like $1 million should go to a West County Care Fund, right? And that maybe it's organizations who are working directly with people. We have models for that. Or at least part of it goes to that. So there's a pooled fund. So all the orgs that are here might have a family that we do, food insecurity work, food apartheid work, but we have a family that actually needs support around prescriptions. There's this fund that can help, right? And then it helps us see, like, in our ecosystem, there's what we're doing in our lanes of work, but then there's what we're seeing that helps us see all together. And I wouldn't want to lose that, because that one time is just going to go fast. I don't want to set us up more for competition. So I don't think it has to be an either or.
No, I hear
And
you,
there's
right.
the funds at the county, but
Right. And how do we leverage these funds for maybe more into a care
because that's why
fund?
I think we could bring philanthropic partners, and if they're gonna actually provide to this care
Right.
fund this much, we get all our philanthropy, and that's all our money anyway, so.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
that, I
idea.
wanna think about maybe are there tiered strategies, so
Yes.
maybe there's some grants, and it's only for small organizations, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe can we do a pooled fund that allows us to think about a system that folks can access as needed to support our community members.
That's a really good, and we're taking this down, but that also gets to the point where, let's say, we could do a grant to an organization that could run a care fund. That could be a proposal that comes in. Remember I said under 50, over 50, yes, and there could be something, and maybe we say the condition of it is it get leveraged one-to-one by foundation money. I I agree with you. To me, the more we can, leverage this. Right, I know during the pandemic, Sabrina, you work with a lot of community, I appreciate you being here, you've got a lot of history, you work with a lot of the churches, and so, I think that's a great idea. But we're gonna create a process that's as open and innovative as possible to hear ideas, because we know we're not gonna get all the specific ideas through this process. In a way, what we're doing is trying to develop priorities in a process, right? And it could be X dollars to this care fund that's leveraged by other money, and then small grants. You're already thinking, and this is why I get a lot out of these discussions, because I'm picking something up, and this is why we're doing it.
That's
Just a heads up, we have 4 people so
Okay.
far online. Go going here,
Okay,
here, here, and here.
okay, you're gonna remember that order? Okay, all right. And you, oh, 5, okay, and then Nancy here, former health department employee, right?
Well, wonderful, you all are right on this is wonderful, excellent. And we're right on the tip of what my, 2 things I wanted to say was thinking about an endowment, right? A collective fund where we can take a piece of this and set it aside so we can grow and build on top of it, so we can all be together, collaborate. My name is Reverend Alexandria Van Hook. I see my new cousin over there. And
Most who don't know, the Van Hook family is pretty famous around here. Carl, you know a few Van Hooks yourself, right? Yes.
And I am a chaplain at the juvenile hall in Martinez. And so I work with the young adults aged 12 to 25. And it's not necessarily religious. It's an interfaith clinical spirituality where we help building identity restoration. We engage the moral and inner lives of our young people who are at these intersections of crisis, right? Of system missed opportunities and all these things that they're in need of. And so one thing that I know and I hear our youth talking about as they leave the hall and then they return, recidivism, which we don't want. Right.
That's why youth centers like RYSE.
Correct. The thing is, our youth are saying they don't know where to go. So one of my priorities is system navigation for this specific group of young people who are coming out. I know for sure they don't know about STEAM on the streets, and I would love to. I'm an advocate and have been a children's advocacy, young adult programs for many years out in Oakland. And I'm new to Contra Costa County.
and Richmond, we're glad to have you.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. And systems navigation for reentry youth, I think, is very important, getting them to know where they can go for childcare, right? We have 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds with 2, 3-year-olds, and they don't know how they can, they need to provide for them. Children having children, it's a thing, but they also need care. They need to know what to do. And while we're doing workforce engagement, they're learning how to do their resumes, we're thinking about also, are they knowing and learning how to dress and get prepared to go to work also? So how can we engage that full ecosystem? And then paid workforce training in some of the, probation is doing a wonderful job with their environmental programs. They're doing beekeeping. But how wonderful would it be if we had some campuses where those youth can come specifically and build up these community gardens that we're also building. Some kids can work at the Food Security Collective, get a little money to learn about it. Those things would be, I think, a huge priority from my end. And let's see, what's one? Oh, and I did attend a youth and young adult homelessness panel. So that's for Jesse. Shout out to hearing from those who are actually engaged or those who are also unhoused. And their request from us was looking at a simple thing like pillows at our Cali house. There's one transition where we use shelter, and they need pillows, right? Something simple. So I think in looking at our youth and their navigation and where they're going, and then how they're going to get there and how they're going to show up is my priority group. And I would love to get everybody's information because the kids don't know. My kids don't know who you are. So speak to me.
Thank you, and you sounds like you make a good member of our Juvenile Justice Advisory Commission. We have various juvenile justice. Yeah, so I mean, this is great to hear, appreciate, and look forward to talking to you more. Thanks. Who's next? Robert, you know who is next?
Yes, and let me remind everyone, we have refreshments and sandwiches back here. If you're hungry, come help yourself. And our next speaker.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, thank you so much, Supervisor, for your time and all the providers here for providing good services to all residents in Contra Costa County. My name is Noe Wu. I'm a director of the Community Health for Asian American. 29 years we serve mental health and behavioral health care services in Contra Costa County. So we are very grateful that dedicated team member working with every, not only Asian, all walks of all lives here. But I always believe that leave no one behind. One of the UN agenda that not only a family level, community, country, and then across the globe. I noticed that there is a lot of API communities living in Contra Costa County. 39% of API communities do not have the voice here. And that's why I decided it is time to speak on behalf of Asian communities. I do care about all communities here, all diverse groups. We came together and having discussion on how we can serve our communities better. And I appreciate all residents here. Here is some kind of recommendation from on behalf of API communities we have. There's a recent survey about the API policy priority briefing. This is from you. And also I have some recommendations from our team and community members about how to develop a multicultural wellness and trauma-informed care services for newcomer refugees. Thank you so much. This is for you.
Thank you. It's always good to rely on work that's been done. Thanks. I know, CHA, Community Health for Asian Americans, we used to do a lot. I remember many years ago, we helped form, and remember this, we partnered with RYSE to form the Southeast Asian Youth Leaders, this whole network, because there's a large group of Southeast Asians in West Contra Costa especially. And you're right, I mean, there hasn't been as strong of a voice recently, and it's great to see this being re-engaged and re-energized because we have a large population here, and I know, I remember there were young people in the early formation of RYSE from the Southeast Asian community who were involved, so thanks. We'll look at this way and look at what kinds of recommendations on that as well, giving capacity. I know you have an office in Richmond, Oakland, and Antioch. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. We're gonna go here, here, and here.
Sabrina Saunders, One Accord Project. Supervisor Gioia, it's always wonderful to see you. And
likewise.
Yeah, you were such a tremendous help to us in formulating a response to COVID for the African American community, which took a terrible hit. But I have to just confirm what Carmen Paul was saying about the need. I'm concerned about, as you spoke about, what's going to happen when these cuts hit our communities and there's nothing there for the people. So if we had a fund like this, it could maybe absorb some of the shock that people are going to experience. And to take it a step further, I was thinking about how come we couldn't leverage some of the Chevron money to bolster a fund like that. Say if we combine the million or part of the million and something from that to create a fund. Because that's what I was thinking about, how we could do something that could have a lasting kind of effect for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, part of it is to think about how do we take this funding and leverage it with other. And as you know, there's a separate Chevron agreement with the city that the city entered into a tax settlement agreement with Chevron based on a ballot measure, they were going to put on the ballot to raise taxes on Chevron. And that agreement calls for, I think, $60 million a year for 5 years and then $55 million a year for 5 years. So it's about, $60 million for us, 300. So it's $550 million over 10 years. And that the city council's gonna get to decide how to spend that money. And so that's also an issue to take up with the city council, because that's unrestricted, how it can be used, right? Their district's funding will be related to certain types of community benefit kinds of things. We'll look at the guidelines for that. But those are all really good suggestions, Sabrina. Thanks. And I think, this idea of a care fund, we don't know how all these cuts are gonna affect people, you're right. And so we have to think about that and continue to fight on those, but what are the other sources we can? Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Marisol, third generation Richmond resident. I'm part of 8617 around the other Chevron money. So really pollution mitigation is what those funds are going to be used for, the $36 million. I just, to speak to this, agree with Colin Paul and a lot of people leveraging it. as much as possible and thinking about a funding formula that may be able to leverage a percentage going into leveraging with other philanthropies, foundations, but then some of it, I think the word like tiered was also mentioned. I think 1 million, unfortunately, if we start thinking in tiers, then if we're trying to leverage and build a care fund and then also grant nonprofits, like I think there needs to be kind of a reconciliation of how much $1 million is and how quickly it will go. And so I just think we should be realistic.
Right.
The other thing is, for an example in Richmond where we were able to leverage funds from the Reimagining Public Safety and the Office of Neighborhood Safety in Richmond, which focuses on gun violence and prevention work, they were completely underserved as a city resource. And when funds were reallocated to them, it created a threshold in which they were able to apply and double their funds. So with an increase of $1 million into that one program, the next year they received state and federal funding and they brought back $6.3 million. Because we were able to invest $1 million, they then reached a threshold to be able to gain more funds from state, obviously not federal for the next couple of years, but from state at least. And so just trying to think of if there are county programs that are completely underserved right now that need a little bit more care. I think we should look at some of the ones that have been mentioned here, and I think that would be a priority around some of the mental health crisis and healthcare, just because I think our community is going to be in need. All of our communities are going to be in need when it comes to health.
Thank you. I hear this consistent theme, which I'm going to think a lot about, is how do we leverage this money to bring in other money, right? I mean, we'll think about that. I think that's a really good thing and important, and it's good to look at, there's been a lot of good planning done, like, these policy priorities for the API community that you gave me, has been the result of a public process itself, right? So a lot of you have been engaged in other public processes. And so it's not just this process we're going through. I remember we had this conversation about when we were setting these up, that there's been a lot of really good work already done with all of you have probably been involved in some public process somewhere. I know, I know the Cocoa Kids has on what are needs. So we want to draw on all of that, whether it's API, whether it's kids, whether it's in the African American community, there's a lot of stuff that's been done, and we want to draw on that and not pretend that we're just starting. I mean, otherwise we're not honoring all the stuff that's happened up till now. I mean, when we had that discussion, it's like we need to honor all the work that all of you have been doing. I mean, the whole 8617 process, right? What were the highest priorities on pollution control? All of those things, we want to rely on all of that. Unfortunately, I'm aware of a lot of those things, not everything, and so that's part of it. Nancy, I think we missed, no, here and then you're the fifth.
Here.
Yes.
Here.
Got it, okay.
I'll be quick, promise. Okay, my name is Letty Kizan and I'm the Director of Development and Communications at Cocoa Kids. And I'd like to follow up this discussion and conversation about kids on two things. So we're here always to represent and advocate for children because they do not have the ability to speak for themselves. They're too small, but they deserve a seat at the table. So we are always seeking for funding to help those who care for them. And these are parents and child care providers who care for them. As we all know, child care providers, especially in this district, always need financial help because they're always struggling. But on the other hand, families also need help because the cost of childcare is getting expensive for them. So for those who need that, we provide subsidy for childcare. For those who need to find work, for those who work, and for those who probably go back to school so that they can get jobs, we provide childcare for those. And I think childcare is very important because we cannot work without childcare. We cannot go to school without childcare, and we cannot do activities without childcare. My second point is we'd like to also let the community know about our services. So apart from providing subsidy of paying for childcare for disadvantaged families, we also provide the resource and referral services. So for families needing childcare and other resources around families, we provide our resource and referral services. And we also have a health and nutrition program that provides healthy meals for children in childcare settings. And we are part of the food program, a federal food program that we are trying to implement as well. And we also provide free classes for providers so that they can increase the quality of education that they give to our children. So all of those resources are available. We have an office here in Richmond, so all we need is a call or email us, our website, cocokids.org. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for lifting up the work Cocoa Kids does. They've been around a long time. And I know we had some Measure X funding also toward childcare and things like that. And I want to check in on how that's being spent, how effective is that? I know we have some ongoing funding, I think, allocated. Speaking of childcare, Sonia's providing childcare to her daughter here. Right, yes, right. So we all do it ourselves. It's collective childcare, right? Yes.
Hi, Supervisor. Thank you so much for holding so many community sessions. My name is Kayla. I'm with Hope Solutions. I know you just toured our El Portal site last week.
It was great. By the way, I just want to say, because this probably doesn't come out of your time here, but this was one of those projects we blended federal, state, and county dollars, Measure X funding, to build in San Pablo. They supported it. They didn't fund it. They supported it. 54 units of permanent supportive housing, supportive services on site near the college for previously homeless individuals. These, it was like 300 square feet per unit, beautiful small units. And next door, we're actually building a new relative services adding to that little campus area, and right across from where Sonia lives. And it's been a great addition to the neighborhood, and Hope Solutions is managing that project. So thank you for doing that. It was great. And there was a need, talked about donating, we didn't realize we want to publicize, people can donate things there. When residents come in, they may not always have food or detergent or pillows or things like that. And I was amazed to see that you had a nice little room where you collect gifts. So we're going to publicize that so people can bring gifts or make donations.
That's great. Yes, thank you. We do have, it's called our Closet of Hope, and we know that sometimes as people get to the end of the month or they move in and they need some things, we have new new items for them to choose from, whether that's like toothbrush or sanitary pads or snacks or whatever. But yes, I do just want to uplift. I know that $1 million is not a lot that's not going to do a lot for housing, right, in the long term. There are, of course, programs that can be supported in these smaller grants, but when you're thinking about the use for the remaining, 17 million funds, I do just want to highlight affordable housing, permanent supportive housing. Like many others, I've been to the other supervisors' townhalls, and housing is a critical issue that everyone is concerned about, for whether it's rental assistance and utility assistance or affordable home ownership. And I do just want to say that leveraging these conversations about leveraging public and private partnerships are super effective, and Hope Solutions has done that with one site that exists in Walnut Creek. We have cottage communities on faith-owned land, so it's a partnership with public funds and private capital funds, and we are launching another site in Pittsburgh for transitional aged youth. That'll be breaking ground soon, and I just want to say that there's, our work, our site, and I just want to make sure that permanent supportive housing, especially with the cuts that are coming down the pike at the federal level, that this is something we're
And the good news is we're allocating $12 million every year out of Measure X into an affordable housing trust fund. Some of that's being used for some rental assistance, and some of it's being used to actually close the gap. And we use some of that funding, I think, to close the gap on the El Portal project. So we're actually, we know, and that's not enough, but at least we're starting. Nancy, who had a great career in our Contra Costa Health Department.
I did.
You did. For the people of the county.
And I remember you, Tanya, from when you were a teenager working with Urban Till.
There's a lot of great connections in this room. It's great to see that. Yes, I remember when she was at RYSE. I think at RYSE too. You remember she was at RYSE, right? We like to hire people from RYSE, right?
So I just wanted to, when I was working, one of my areas of involvement was health equity, and particularly changes in the physical environment that would make people healthier, which involved, in my case, I worked on injuries. Richmond used to have the highest rate of pedestrian injuries in the county. You'll notice these days that there are better crosswalks, better bicycling facilities, etc. I don't know that that's particularly relevant to the people in the room, but I give that as an example of something to think about, that there may be, maybe it's access to places where you can get healthy food. But I just wanted to plant that thought in there that it's not just the community-based agencies, it's also the people that are doing work like in the city and in the county that can make the community healthier, and that's, I think, been the case with access to health care and the area that I worked in, and also food security. That term was that term was invented while I was working. All of a sudden I started hearing about it, and I'm very glad to hear that there's lots of work going on in that area still. So I just mostly came to plant that idea and see what's happening in West County.
Thank you. You know, can I make a comment about the terms we use for a second? There's been a lot of terms that we all use, like food security is one. There's other terms, and I'm just gonna use that one. And, you know, we talk about food deserts, food insecurity, and we know what that means. A lot of the public doesn't always know what that means. And I attended many years ago, it was a session that one of the large foundations nationally was holding. And it was, how do we use, I'm saying this because you're all advocates, how do we use terms that the public understands that help sell the point we're trying to make? And like when they were talking about food security, they said, what does that mean? Fresh fruits and vegetables in your neighborhood, more grocery stores, a community garden. So what they were sort of saying, when we use that term here, that when we talk to the public, we should be saying, we need, you know, more access to fresh fruits and vegetables, things like that. So I learned a lot thinking about that, because I think where we as advocates need to be stronger is appealing to the public in the terms and way that they understand. And to frame things, like I'm on the air district, and, you know, we call a lot of our laws regulations, and I've heard others call them health protective measures. So what would you rather pass, a regulation or a health protective measure? What do you think a health protective measure sounds better? So I think a lot about that when we think about our work, and I have to pull out my notes from that session. It was really good advice out of that, because it helped me think about, you know, even within the group, because it was everybody who attended that session was doing this work, and they all knew what they were talking about, but it's just that the public didn't always understand it. So I just appeal to all of us to think about that, and there's a person out of UC Berkeley, George Lakoff, you know, a linguist, who talked a lot about how we frame things, and how sometimes, when I say the other side, those who want to cut these services, use language and framing that appeals to people, like, a bill to do a bunch of logging was like the green forest measure. or something that polluted the air was called the blue sky law, right? So the next time you think of regulation, call it a health protective measure. Don't call it a regulation. And the next time we think about food security, or in a neighborhood too, talk about more access to fresh fruits and vegetables. People will vote. I always think about what can I say that gets people to vote for something, right? To vote for a tax, to vote for to vote for an investment. How's that? Not a tax, it's an investment. So all of you do this work, so I think in your work, it's a way to think about how do we get the public to support what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Supervisor. Kind of on that same vein, I think it's also important that we're able to maybe create, like maybe it's on the county website or somewhere where like we can ask CBOs, like I don't work in food security work, but I know that sometimes I'm facing with community members that are going through crisis or are in like desperate need for food, or I think it'd be great to maybe on the county website have like, and I can show you like, for example, when Deepano does a really great job of like outlining resources based on what you need. Like, is it healthcare related? Is it food security?
Yes.
Is it housing? And like just having very clear in different languages, like what kind of resources folks where they can go for these resources. And like, it made me think, right, like the food folks, I know there's like a ton all across the county, but like where exactly, and this is for my work, right, where can I tell someone to go? Like, is there a list or somewhere where I'm like, hey, if you need food, these are the places you can go, churches, you know, whatever it is, so that like the community is aware, and they can also tell their neighbors or friends, like, this is where I can get food, and like, there's no barriers, they're not gonna ask you what your status is, what your income is, like, none of that is going to be a requirement. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that also came to mind, like similar to that, is like also ensuring that we don't have barriers for folks to access some of these programs, right? And I'm thinking more so now like in terms of income, right? Like a lot of the times, in order to qualify for things like Medi-Cal or food stamps, like the barrier to entry is like very low in terms of income, but that still leaves out a whole lot of people that like, for whatever reason, they might be a single parent, they have 2 jobs, so their income doesn't qualify them for assistance, but they still need help and they still need support. So what I'm seeing is now, especially with like AI and how sort of the tech world and how it's affecting even white collar jobs, like there's gonna be a lot more folks in our community that are going to need help that may not traditionally have been in these spaces or needed that kind of support. And so I think we should also be thinking for whatever the county funds, if it's possible, to like take away some of those barriers around income, because I think it can be a barrier for some folks, just because you make couple $100 a month, completely disqualified. I think that is having impacts, especially in our middle class, that like is essentially being obliterated as we speak. And so I think there's also like, I think language and real access problems that exist, and I'm speaking from personal experience, like, yeah, I technically have a full-time job, but I still struggled, and I was not able to qualify, even though I had practically no dollars in my bank account. And so it's just like, there's real sort of, I think, issues that are sort of popping up, and I think there's also popping up for folks that we historically may not have seen that needed help, so.
No, Joanna, thanks for that. I want to follow up with you about that, so make sure we note it. I think there is something, is it the 211, right? I mean, I've learned we need to use that more and make that more robust, because that's like the one place where it's updated on the web of the different services, and I don't know, I haven't checked whether it's up to date and is as thorough and complete as it should be. So that is a subject I've always been interested in more, and how do we get the information out to people? I think that's really, really important. So thank you for raising that. Thank you.
Very helpful.
Yeah, we should do more of 211. Yes.
I've been hearing it spoken over and over about the funding. For ongoing funding here in Contra Costa County and Richmond, I truly believe we need a mega project here in the city. Just Contra Costa County, a mega project that will help with funding ongoing. You know, I visit other cities and states, and they have like a mega roller rink. Okay, it have a lot of jobs to offer. It's about health, wellness, safety. It depends on how it's designed, with high-tech security. And it's an ongoing project for all mankind. I noticed that different cities and states that I have been to, New York, Chicago, they have mega roller rinks. And that's how the funding goes to help with the schools. It's not owned by the entity not owned by one person. The city makes the money off of it, the county. And, they have high
The
tech
community
security on
owns,
it.
the community owns.
Yes, and the funding is constantly just revolving, see. I've seen mega rollouts and.
Or it could be whatever works in Richmond to bring people in, right, yes. You know, the Green Bay Packers are owned by the community, I'm not sure if they share revenue to the community, but that football team's owned by the community. She's saying something like that, that produces revenue for the community.
Like the Cubs, they own.
We could have taken the Oakland A's over, owned it by the community, build a stadium in Richmond, right?
Thank you so much, just let you guys know,
Yes.
we're coming up on time, we have a comment here.
I wanna make sure I
We have
hear
one
from
on
people,
Zoom.
some new
Let's
people
try to
came
be
in,
brief.
if you want to say something too. Good, yeah.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Gioia. We're happy to be here. My name is Andrew Melendez. I'm a community organizer with Reimagine Richmond, also a lifelong Richmond resident. Our big priority as a movement is really supporting community safety, alternatives to safety that we've been seeing pop up in the last few years in Richmond and across the county with A3. And we really believe that just continuing to invest in mental health services like A3, like the current efforts with the West County Behavioral Health Center as well is just so important. Because we know that it saves lives, right? Just this year alone, we've had 2 unfortunate situations where, two folks who were experiencing mental health crises didn't receive the support that they needed. Those police officers here in the city of Richmond who responded, not with care, but unfortunately with bullets. And so, the need is very high, and this is not just a Richmond specific issue, it's something that will benefit the entire county. And of course, as we know, right, $1 million is not a lot. I think I agree with the ideas that other folks are about leveraging this money so that everyone can have a bigger slice of this pie. But I just think it's just important that as we continue to think about more grants and more funding sources that we really focus on supporting A3 because I think it's a really wonderful program.
It is, I mean, we put in $20 million a year of Measure X funds into A3, anywhere, anytime, any place, something like that. And it's really meant to be a behavioral health, mental health crisis response line. So you can access it several ways. And the idea is, if you call 911, you can access it. They can show up with or without law enforcement, depending on what the need is, to provide crisis mental health, behavioral health response. Unique, not a lot of places have it. It is countywide. We have the Miles Hall Call Center. So yes, and we definitely put funding into keeping that going.
Thank you so much. We are coming up on time. We have a comment from Zoom we are going to get to, but is there anyone else in the room that needs to speak?
Do we want to read what he says?
We have somebody
personally as the.
We have somebody in the room, John.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay. It's my neighbor down the street. Good to see you.
Hello everyone.
We should talk more in the neighborhood. I know we don't always get to talk in the neighborhood.
My name is Anupama Tapagai. I'm Richmond resident. And I'm this is kind of unusual for me these days to be in the meeting with other Richmond resident because I work at CERI, Center for Empowering Refugees and Immigrants. But I have been working in Richmond from really long, starting 2011. And before Obamacare, I was helping with mobilizing our community, Nepali community. That's why we have Contra Costa here. I work on the ground, but we never received any funding from Contra Costa County to work for Nepali community. But we collaborate with Family Justice Center thanks to Susan, always including us in all of our work. That's how we have been able to help Contra Costa County residents, lifelong urgent care, where I send my people for Contra Costa care sign-offs and we brighter beginnings. I do groundwork and collaborate with many Richmond nonprofits. In the past, we collaborated with Healthy Richmond for Covered California and Covered California. I know you, so yeah, I used to go to their meetings all the time. But somehow I hope I stopped kind of hoping that we are also getting funding from Contra Costa County, it's been more than 10 years, and we never had. But I starting from Chan, I worked in many non-profits. Yeah, now I'm with the state.
Organization now And then say it again for
The Center for Empowering Refugees and Immigrants. We are based in Oakland, but we have like 50,000 Nepali living in San Francisco Bay Area. But in some of the Richmond neighborhood, we have 200 households in one pocket neighborhood. So we have been providing all kind of support, including mental health. Noah wanted me to talk about mental health. This morning also, I received an email from one of our community leaders to support one 25-year-old youth who is homeless and looking for mental health crisis support. And I contacted like Mona and Kate to provide, because we have psychiatric clinic at Seri, we have mental health counseling services also. But now we have Nepali Community Center in Richmond, 369 Chelsea Avenue. We have like branch of Seri. In the like we have some few rooms where we already started a youth group and support group for elderly people, and we are doing case management also. Just hoping to be, like able to start somewhere with this funding. I'm really hopeful. But I'm like already grateful for many organizations who are like hiring Nepali folks who have been contributing their time by volunteering to work for Nepali community here in the Contra Costa County.
Thanks, Anupama. Thanks for your work, in your organization, your past organization, your personal work. One of the things I said early on is $1 million is not a lot of money, and what we want to do is use this as a chance to also understand what other funding opportunities exist for the causes and organizations that are here. So even if there's not funding out of this, how do we link it to other funding that the county may have that could benefit the same organization or the same cause? So I want you to know if we're thinking about that. I know you did sign up. I have you signed up when you came in. Make sure I have all your contact, which I have. I can always knock on your door, but but I do think we want to link other people to what are the other funding opportunities we have, not just this $1 million. And there is, one of the things I said, for the work that you're doing, I'll think about this, the Air District is going to be distributing $36 million on the Air District Board in the Richmond, San Pablo, North Richmond area on health-related kinds of things to address health disparities. So that is a piece of this that is a separate process that we're going to maybe get some word out about that too.
Healthcare disease is our like main priority.
Yeah.
We have been offering lawyers training now,
Yeah.
with all the rebates and
Yeah.
deportation related support, also providing
Right.
legal counsel, like a lot of stuff. So I
Yes.
don't remember
Thanks.
everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that we only have the Zoom one. John, would you like to
This
read
says,
it?
personally, as the mother of 2 brilliant young people, I would love for you to financially support programs like Yes Richmond, because they help young people and adolescents be in a healthy and safe space to make better decisions. I believe that the family continues to be the cell of society, and we must continue supporting families in all their forms, since by raising young people with better opportunities, we will have a healthy, hardworking society, generating new resources, educated and full of dreams to fulfill, because they will know that there will always be a place that helps them. Who is that? This person want to speak? By the way, I did go, Alejandrita, if you wanted to say something, or if you're still on, I don't know if you are. I did go to Yes's fundraising event. We actually, we've provided $150,000 a while back of capital dollars, not service dollars, for their new facility, and an additional 50. So we're actually supporting the capital side with funding that is just for capital. Anyway, just thank you for that. Any other comments? I always walk away from these feeling energized with a lot of good ideas. There's 2 sides to this. Hope, because of all you doing the work and good ideas, and sometimes also frustration that that you're still all doing this work, and that we're still dealing with all of these issues. So I feel somewhat both frustration that we still have the same challenges, and hope that we're working on them. So, but I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the input from all of you, and we will be, obviously pretty public about where we go and talking about a grant application process. Anything else we wanted to finish up with? No, we're good? Thank you, everybody. Feel free to finish editing the food. Thank you. And it's great to meet new people.
Also, on your way out, please grab some of these stickers so you can kind of put your +1 on any of these issues. Thank you.
Am I getting all of them? Yeah.
I saw you across the room. That looks like Toledo only. But then you said your name and I was then sure. Anyway, mother of 2, oh wow. Grandma, I was 13-year-old.
It's just like your blood.
No, I don't want to. Yeah, so I founded Groundwork. They're surviving fairly well, but we're getting along. Stabilized after, we lost. It's tough times. I'll take you for it.
It feels like
Right.